What happens when a guest is so unfunny Johnny Carson and the audience visibly become uncomfortable? These are the most unfunny comedians Johnny Carson ever said to have on his show. Bob Hope, the pre-recorded pusher.
I'd never said a thing like that to you. And I wouldn't say how many flies do you have?
Producers said Hope would bring in highlight reels from his specials that ran long and were hard to trim down. Once he even asked during a commercial break if he could use laughter from a Carson monologue for his own upcoming special. Carson later told his staff, Hope's not a good guest because he arrives with scripted jokes and rarely engages in real conversation. The relationship became transactional, with Hope treating Tonight Show appearances as promotional vehicles rather than conversations.
I was buttering a bun back there.
Were you really?
Johnny valued spontaneity, and Hope's prepackaged approach killed the energy. The audience could sense when segments felt rehearsed versus genuinely funny. Hope's legendary status meant Carson couldn't refuse bookings, but he dreaded them privately. The generational gap between them created awkward moments where Hope's old-school style clashed with Carson's modern sensibility. Johnny tried steering conversations toward genuine interaction, but Hope would circle back to prepared material.
Funny thing happened outside. A guy stopped me and said, "Would you like to buy a nice suit for $40?" I said, let me see it. He said, "You're wearing it."
The highlight reels disrupted the show's rhythm, forcing producers to cut planned segments. Carson felt trapped by Hollywood politics since openly criticizing Hope would spark industry backlash. Other guests noticed Johnny's visible relief when Hope's segments finally ended. The contrast between Hope's stiff performances and spontaneous guests like Don Rickles couldn't have been starker. Carson's staff developed strategies to minimize Hope's airtime without appearing disrespectful. The dynamic illustrated how comedy legends can become liabilities when they stop adapting to changing formats. Hope never understood why Carson seemed less enthusiastic about booking him in later years. Rich Little, the Carson impression killer.
I must be impersonating you more than I figured because my arm hurts.
Did it lock on you just right in the middle?
Yeah, while you were doing it.
That's a strong young lady, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I was just wondering.
I was doing the best I could really do.
I thought you did pretty well.
I could hold her. I could not. I couldn't get her down.
Oh, yeah.
Little's Tonight Show appearances ended abruptly after an August 1982 appearance, and he claimed it was because Carson was offended by Little's Carson impression. Henry Bushkin supported that idea, saying nobody got under Carson's skin more than Little. If your big laugh is built around imitating the host, and the host stops enjoying it, you go from recurring bit to not funny anymore overnight. Little made a career out of impressions, with Carson being his signature.
"'Twas a night before Christmas, in our San Clemente house. Not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse."
The irony was, Little's Carson voice helped make him famous. But Johnny grew tired of being the punchline, especially as he aged. The impression highlighted Carson's mannerisms in ways that felt mocking, not flattering. Little didn't intend cruelty, but impact matters more than intent. Carson watched himself through Little's eyes and didn't like what he saw. The impression made Johnny feel old and became less funny with each repetition. Little's bookings dried up without explanation, leaving him confused. From Carson's perspective, the joke had worn out its welcome. Little's talent wasn't in question, but his material had become uncomfortable. The band was quiet with no public announcement, just stopped invitations.
I tried to run the Tonight Show properly, but they fought me at every turn. If Johnny wants to run around doing lousy impressions of me,
Little tried reaching out, but Carson's mind was made. The decision reflected Johnny's sensitivity about aging and public image. Little's impression wasn't mean-spirited, but Carson couldn't separate performance from perception. Other impressionists learned to avoid Carson, especially on his own show. Johnny Carson proved that being funny wasn't enough. You also had to respect the show and its people. Rich Hall, the comedian who never got invited back.
Having a good time? Yeah. Are you having fun? Yeah. How do you know? How do you know how much fun you're having? They never ever came up with an accurate measurement for fun, did they?
Hall walked onto The Tonight Show with a style built on restraint, dry lines, sharp sarcasm, and a calm tone that depends on the audience catching the angle immediately. In a tight club, that works because people are close, focused, and ready to lean in. In a large studio crowd, it can vanish. The room wants a clearer signal, bigger rhythm, and more visible drive. Hall is still saying things that are smart and funny, but the reaction stays thin.
See that? There's a Snickers bar. What's it say? Fun size! A lot smaller than we thought it was going to be, isn't it? Really expecting a big blimp?
And you can feel the distance between the jokes and the audience. Once that gap opens, the set starts fighting the room instead of writing it. The beats do not land where they should, and the energy in the space does not rise to meet him. A comedian can sense that in real time, and it changes everything. Each new punchline feels like it has to do extra work to win the crowd back. If Carson does not step in and reset the momentum, the segment begins to feel slow, even when the writing is solid. That is why the memory becomes Hall bombed instead of Hall had good material. The issue was the fit. The performance needed a different kind of room, and that room needed a different kind of performance. Jerry Lewis, the abusive perfectionist.
We're used to the craziness.
Yeah.
And when you talk regular, it's like another person.
You see what I'm doing?
A cue card staffer told Carson that Lewis got hysterical and verbally abusive when a request couldn't be done in time during a guest host week. Carson decided Lewis would never guest host or appear again with one brief exception. Johnny's logic wasn't your jokes aren't funny, but you're making the show unpleasant, and that poisons comedy faster than a bad punchline.
This is the way it's going to be. Oh, come on.
Lewis had a reputation for being difficult, but Carson wouldn't tolerate crew abuse. The Tonight Show staff was fiercely loyal to Johnny, and he protected them. When someone mistreated his team, it became personal, not professional. Lewis's comedy genius couldn't overcome his backstage behavior. Carson valued kindness and professionalism as much as talent. The band sent a message that no star was bigger than the show's culture. Other guests heard about the Lewis incident and knew where the line was. Johnny rarely exercised his power this way, but when he did, it was permanent. The crew appreciated Carson's willingness to defend them against legendary performers. Lewis never understood why Carson cut him off so completely. From Johnny's perspective, comedy stops being funny when it comes with cruelty. The band lasted years with no reconciliation.
A great pathologist. And now you get Jerry Lewis for doing
Carson's Tonight Show was built on mutual respect, and Lewis violated that foundation. Industry insiders knew the story, and it affected Lewis's reputation. Johnny proved he'd sacrifice a big name to protect his team's dignity. The incident became legendary as an example of Carson's loyalty. Lewis's talent was undeniable, but his temperament made him radioactive. Carson never regretted the decision, telling friends that some people aren't worth the headache. The cue card staffer Lewis berated was a young woman who'd done nothing wrong. Lewis's tirade included personal insults and screaming that echoed through the studio.
You retire to the grill area in the Opera House, where they...
Not like a luncheonette, I mean?
No, it's for dinner. Will you pay attention?
Certainly.
Multiple crew members witnessed the outburst, creating a collective trauma. Carson heard about it within hours and immediately called the staffer to apologize. The woman was shaken enough to consider quitting until Johnny reassured her. Carson's protective response cemented staff loyalty for years afterward. Lewis's guest hosting gig was cut short, with remaining episodes quietly canceled. The network absorbed the scheduling disruption rather than force staff to work with Lewis again. Lewis complained about being blacklisted, never connecting his behavior to consequences. Carson's decision inspired other shows to protect their crews from abusive talent. The Tonight Show became known as the gold standard for respectful workplace culture. Younger performers learned that talent alone wouldn't sustain careers without decency. Lewis's band proved Carson's values weren't performative, but genuinely held. The decision cost Tonight Show a comedy legend, but gained immeasurable staff respect. Other hosts noticed and began prioritizing crew treatment in their own productions. Carl Sagan, the fact checker.
The skin of all the humans in Star Wars, oddly enough, is sort of like this.
Right.
And not even the other colors represented on the Earth.
In January 1986, Sagan corrected Carson twice while they discussed Halley's Comet. Carson smiled it off on the surface, but felt slighted and made sure Sagan wasn't invited back. In a comedy setting, getting fact-checked mid-beat can make the host look wrong. Carson treated that as the opposite of a good and therefore funny desk segment. Johnny valued being the authority on his own show, not the student. Sagan's corrections weren't mean-spirited, but they undermined Carson's control of the conversation. The audience noticed the dynamic shift from playful banter to awkward correction. Sagan approached the segment as education, while Carson wanted entertainment. The mismatch in expectations doomed any future collaborations. Carson's ego couldn't handle being publicly corrected, even by a renowned scientist. The Halley's Comet discussion should have been a fascinating conversation, but became a power struggle.
I thought I would give it on a subject that was dear to his heart, how human beings became human, I thought it was a good opportunity for me to learn some new stuff, and I became absolutely captivated by it. I mean, it's connected with some things I'm interested in.
Johnny never forgot moments that made him look foolish on his own set. The first correction caught Carson off guard, making him stumble through his next setup. Sagan's second correction felt like piling on, confirming Carson's initial irritation. The audience laughed at the corrections, but Carson heard it as laughing at him, not with him. Carson prided himself on preparation, making the public correction doubly embarrassing. Sagan's earnest desire to educate clashed with Carson's need to entertain through control. The segment ratings were fine, but Carson's bruised ego mattered more than numbers. Producers noticed Johnny's changed demeanor after the Sagan appearance. Carson's decision to not bring back Sagan showed that intellect without social awareness could be fatal. The incident taught bookers to brief scientific guests about Carson's expectations. Sagan likely never knew why invitations stopped coming, assuming scheduling conflicts. Carson's passive-aggressive approach meant few guests understood their offense. William Shatner, the three-rule violator.
Well, it really only went 3. It's been rebroadcast so many times, it seems like it's been on forever. Of course, your series has been on for...
And it seems like forever.
Shatner broke 3 Tonight Show rules in a 1983 appearance, talking monotonously for 4 minutes straight, turning his back to talk to Buddy Hackett, and saying his show aired on ABC. That kind of segment didn't play as funny chaos to Carson, it played as losing control of the room. Johnny reportedly told producers, "Shatner made me look like I couldn't host my own show, and I won't let that happen again." The turning his back moment was particularly egregious, as it literally excluded Carson from his own interview.
Right. And the director is sufficiently familiar with what it's going to potentially look like, describes it to the actors, and sometimes even has it drawn, so that the unknown enemy is at least conceived.
So you know somewhere.
Somewhat.
Mentioning ABC by name violated network protocol and created awkward tension. Shatner's 4-minute monologue ignored every attempt Carson made to interject. The segment became a case study in how not to be a talk show guest. Shatner's theatrical background made him comfortable dominating conversations, but talk shows require collaboration. The audience sensed Carson's frustration as he tried redirecting the runaway segment. Buddy Hackett looked uncomfortable being dragged into Shatner's breach of etiquette. The ABC mention had to be muted in post-production, creating extra work for editors.
Your stuff, you're out in front of the audience, and you're pretty certain of you're going to get a good reaction. People don't expect me to be funny, I guess, and so the guy had submitted some material, and I said, no, that doesn't seem like it would be right. And he said, well, what about this? They say that when you read the phone book.
Carson valued guests who understood the format's rhythm, and Shatner violated every principle. The 4-minute stretch felt endless to producers watching Carson struggle for control. Shatner seemed oblivious to the chaos he'd created, treating it like a successful appearance. Carson's politeness prevented him from cutting Shatner off mid-ramble, but he seethed internally. The incident proved that even established stars could bungle talk show basics. Shatner never received feedback about what went wrong, leaving him confused about the ban. Carson's producers added the segment to training materials, showing new bookers what to avoid. The appearance became infamous among Tonight Show staff as the perfect storm of guest mistakes. Jay Leno, the Wrong Room comic.
If you're unable to find the number in your directory, please stay on the line. An operator will assist.
Called the weather today.
Have you looked outside?
Leno's 5th appearance in February 1978 drew laughs so light that Carson decided not to invite him back. Producer Peter LaSalle said Carson simply didn't like Leno's jokes and that it wouldn't change. Johnny told his producers, "Leno's set isn't bad comedy in general, I just don't think it works for my room." The irony is, Leno would eventually succeed Carson as Tonight Show host years later. Carson's taste was specific, and Leno's observational style didn't match his sensibility.
Leno's blue eyes dart like ferrets caged in a narrow face.
The ban lasted years before Carson eventually softened his stance. Leno's persistence and industry connections eventually earned him another chance. The initial rejection stung Leno deeply, as Tonight Show approval was crucial for comedians in that era. Carson's comedy preferences leaned toward wordplay and timing, while Leno favored relatable observations. The audience's tepid response confirmed Johnny's instincts that the match wasn't working. Leno performed well at comedy clubs but couldn't translate that energy to Carson's stage. The rejection forced Leno to develop material that could work in multiple formats.
I mean, did you ever think your mother or your dad is being funny?
Both my parents are very funny, but not in any intentional way.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Carson's ban inadvertently pushed Leno to become more versatile as a performer. When Leno finally returned years later, his act had evolved significantly. The early failure became motivation, driving Leno's determination to prove Carson wrong. Johnny never publicly discussed why he initially rejected Leno, maintaining professional discretion. The story became industry lore about how Carson's approval could make or break careers. Leno's eventual success as Tonight Show host added irony to the original band. Dana Carvey, the old and confused impersonator.
Gosh, you look young.
Well, thank you very much.
Carvey's ban was tied to a Saturday Night Live sketch parodying Carson, with a producer quoting Johnny's complaint, "I don't talk like that." The portrayal made him seem old and confused, and after a 1990 sketch, he was permanently banned.
I was just blacklisted.
Oh, and he did that to you?
Well, I just didn't get invited back, but I didn't blame him. My thing was always really loving embodying. It was the only time I was, as a performer, didn't care if I got a laugh, because internally I was laughing so hard.
But
Carson even referenced the sting in a monologue, saying a couple of old farts, showing how deeply it bothered him. Carvey's impression focused on Carson's age, which hit a nerve during Johnny's final years. The SNL sketch portrayed Carson as a has-been, which contradicted his still dominant ratings. Johnny felt the parody undermined his authority at a vulnerable career moment. Carvey never anticipated the permanent consequences of a sketch he considered flattering. The impression exaggerated Carson's mannerisms, making him appear feeble and out of touch.
Well, who would do such a thing? Why would they take something that's perfect and have to change it all the time? I mean, who are these people? What are they going to do? Take a pyramid and chop the top off of it and put a condo up there?
Yeah. Carson's sensitivity about aging intensified as retirement approached, making the timing particularly bad. The sketch aired when Carson was still commanding massive audiences, proving he wasn't washed up. Carvey's talent for mimicry backfired when the subject found it insulting rather than honoring. Carson rarely held grudges, but the age mockery crossed a personal line. The ban extended to all NBC appearances during Carson's tenure, showing his influence. Carvey later expressed regret, saying he meant the impression as tribute, not insult. The disconnect between intent and impact cost Carvey access to late night's biggest platform. Other SNL cast members learned to be careful about parodying powerful figures. Carson's "old farts" comment was unusually bitter for someone known for grace under fire. The incident demonstrated how comedy about aging touched Carson's deepest insecurities. Carvey's Carson impression ironically became more famous because of the controversy. Ellen DeGeneres, the rule breaker.
Thank you. Hi. Good. You feeling good?
On her third appearance in May 1987, the show's publicist said Carson told her not to do a certain joke, and she did it anyway. She was chastised in the green room and told essentially that she wouldn't be back.
That's a tough job for a parent to name a kid the rest of your life. That's a big responsibility to be a parent. I'm a godmother now. He's 4. He's this big, in case you ever see him. And calls me God for short. I think that's good.
Carson reportedly said, "When a guest pushes a bit, I specifically said no to it. Reads like they don't get my show." DeGeneres was still establishing herself, and the ban could have derailed her career.
I've been keeping in shape lately, You have to. I'm getting older. I'm 27. People say, you don't look 27. You look like you're about 23. I'm lucky because that runs in my family. My grandmother is 97. She looks about 93.
The joke itself wasn't offensive, but the defiance was unforgivable to Carson. Johnny's word was law on his show, and challenging it meant instant exile. DeGeneres learned a hard lesson about respecting the host's judgment. The incident happened early enough in her career that few people knew about it outside industry circles. Carson's pre-show notes to guests were taken seriously by experienced performers. DeGeneres misread the situation, thinking her instincts about the joke trumped Carson's directive. The green room confrontation was reportedly tense, with producers making clear she'd violated protocol. Other young comedians heard about the incident and became more cautious about Carson's boundaries. The ban taught DeGeneres valuable lessons about navigating entertainment politics. She later credited early setbacks with teaching her resilience and adaptability. Carson never explained publicly which joke caused the problem, maintaining discretion. The Tonight Show's power meant a ban could freeze a comedian's career momentum. DeGeneres eventually recovered, but the experience shaped her approach to authority in entertainment. The story illustrates how Carson's control extended beyond on-air content to backstage backstage relationships. Young performers learned that Carson's guidance wasn't suggestions, it was commands. The incident became a cautionary tale about ego versus career strategy. Steve Allen, the crew tormentor. The final break came in October 1982 after Allen mocked a prior injury Carson had suffered. Plus, word reached Carson that Allen was rude to crew over requested changes. Allen phoned a crew member and yelled, after which the crew member asked not to work with him again, and Carson never invited him back. Johnny may have respected Allen historically, but if you create a hostile vibe, he doesn't consider you funny to have around and you're done. Allen was a comedy pioneer and Carson's predecessor, but that bought him no grace. The injury joke crossed a line from ribbing to cruelty. Carson took care of his body, and recent pain made mockery feel personal. Allen's crew abuse was the final straw, demonstrating a pattern of disrespect. Johnny heard directly from staff that Allen made their jobs miserable. The decision to ban Allen wasn't impulsive, it came after multiple incidents. Carson valued comedy legends, but not at his team's expense. Allen's contributions to late night couldn't excuse bad behavior in the present. The ban shocked the industry because Allen and Carson shared history, but Johnny's loyalty to crew outweighed nostalgia for comedy royalty. Allen never publicly addressed the ban, maintaining silence about the falling out. Carson didn't announce it either, preferring quiet enforcement over public drama. Staff appreciated that Johnny acted on their complaints without fanfare. The lesson was there. Treat Tonight Show people well or don't come back. These 10 guests demonstrate how sometimes a guest who'd come on The Tonight Show just wasn't having a good day or the audience wasn't getting the jokes, while others were just flat out not funny at all, according to Johnny. Do you agree or disagree with his list? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more.